Violence in Barcelona forces Northwestern students to evacuate.
After a months-long makeover, Mudd Library finally reopens.
And at this year's Lincoln Park Zoo Fall Fest, the jack-o'-lanterns weren't the only ones left smiling.
All those stories and more
Coming up on the Northwestern News Report. It's your news right now.
Good evening and welcome to the Northwestern News Report. I'm Maddie Coe.
And I'm Eric Miller. Thanks for joining us. Our top story tonight, chaos in the aftermath of the Catalan independence vote in Spain has impacted some Northwestern students. Nearly 800 injuries have been reported in the region, and the violence forced an evacuation of a dorm where Northwestern study abroad students were living. No students reported injuries, though some were caught up in the chaos. NNN's Andy Weir brings us more. Andy, what happened?
Well, Eric, on referendum day, violent protests broke out all over Barcelona, especially near polling centers. Some Northwestern students on CASA were affected on their way to classes, putting students right on the front lines. Facing this unrest, study abroad programs worked with students' home universities to move them to safety. I spoke with Northwestern junior Andrea Biancalana about the situation on the ground. So, Andrea, what's the mood on the ground there right now?
In Barcelona, I would say the mood is definitely very tense. There's protests and riots almost every day in the major centers of the city, especially at the universities. Where I go to class, we don't really know if we're having classes this week or not, just because of all the students protesting in the streets and preventing entry into the buildings. It's pretty wild and intense right now, for sure.
And how did it feel being right in the middle of that chaos as it unfolded on Sunday?
It's definitely not something I expected when I came to study abroad here, for sure. Being here, I'm learning a lot about the political system of Spain and what's really going on right now. It's been happening in the last 50 years since the Civil War. So it feels interesting to be here while history is happening in Catalonia, but it's definitely a bit scary and jarring as well, too.
So you glad you got out of there?
Definitely, for sure. It's a time where, as an American, it's not really our place to be there right now. Spain is experiencing a lot of political turmoil, and just like the safety of all the students is more important than being there to see it in person. And I'm glad that our program got us out of there for the weekend and away from all of that action.
So according to the Catalan government, about 91% of Catalans who voted in Sunday's referendum voted to leave Spain. Is that matching what you're seeing with attitudes on the ground?
Well, what I would say is that the people who voted are the people who want independence from Spain, just because the federal government in Madrid is saying that the referendum is illegal. So the people that oppose the referendum would not vote. So the high percentage of approval for the vote, I would say, just reflects the people who are in support of independence.
So at this point, do things seem back to normal in Barcelona?
In the area I live, definitely. There's people walking their dogs, going out to dinner, going to the store. But in areas with high tension, like very popular places in the city and the universities, there's definitely still a lot of tension and residual action from the vote. Like even tonight, there was a protest at the university as we were arriving back at our residence.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for taking some time. Stay safe, of course. Thank you again.
Of course, thank you so much.
The students arrived back at their Barcelona dorms just a few hours ago. For more info on the latest unrest in Spain, tune in to Politicat tonight at 7:50.
Sexual assault is a pressing issue at all colleges, and at Northwestern, the latest annual security report shows an increase in reported rapes on campus in 2016 from the previous 2 years. In 2016, 28 rapes were reported across Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses, up from 9 reports in 2015 and 4 reports in 2014. Now the Department of Education has announced changes to guidelines on how universities should handle this sexual assault. Politicat's Andrew Merica joins us now to explain how these changes will affect Northwestern. So Andrew, what has changed?
It all has to do with Title IX. In 2011, President Obama's Department of Education released a letter with very specific instructions on how universities should handle sexual assault. Those guidelines lowered the burden of proof required by victims, making it lower than the proof beyond a reasonable doubt required in courts of law. Many people, like now Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, felt that those guidelines were an overreach by the federal government. So, 2 weeks ago, DeVos announced that the Obama guidelines would be rescinded, which could potentially make it more difficult for victims of sexual assault to prove their cases.
So what does this mean for Northwestern students?
Honestly, probably not too much. Neither the Obama-era guidelines nor these new guidelines are law. Still, most universities implemented those Obama-era guidelines. In a written statement, Northwestern Associate Vice President for Equity Dwight Hamilton said, in part, quote, "The university's policy on sexual misconduct provides for the resolution of complaints in a manner that is prompt, fair, impartial, while maintaining privacy and fairness consistent with the applicable legal requirements. We are reviewing the Department of Education's Q&A on campus sexual misconduct along with existing state and federal statutes and best practices to ensure that we effectively prevent and address sexual misconduct, provide supportive resources to all members of our community who are affected by sexual misconduct, and educate our community on these matters." I also reached out to several student groups on campus who declined to comment on Title IX but said they were committed to providing support for sexual assault victims.
Thank you, Andrew. So what's on Politicat tonight?
So tonight we'll be talking about the GOP tax plan, the Alabama Senate race, Puerto Rico, and much more. That's coming up at 7:50 right after the Northwestern News Report.
All right, we're looking forward to it. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
As the first day of this year's Wildcat Welcome ended, Northwestern's first-year students were not only moved into their residence halls, they were also registered to vote. NNN's politics reporter Nikki Griswold has more. Nikki?
That's right, Eric. More than 96% of Northwestern first years were registered to vote on move-in day. That's all thanks to the NU Votes program, sponsored by the university's Center for Civic Engagement. The program integrates voter registration into the onboarding process for new students. As first-year students checked into their residence halls, students were able to talk to an NU Votes representative at one of their 5 booths across campus. NU Votes provided all the necessary documents for students to register to vote in Illinois, but students who wished to vote in their home states could request an absentee ballot too.
The whole secret of this is that every single student is addressed in person, and somebody is clearly going to take the time to work with them to register them to vote the way they want and answer their questions.
Voter turnout among people under 30 is typically low, but the initiative hopes to increase and encourage civic engagement among students on campus.
Conversations that I have with fellow young people, regardless of what side of issues they fall on, everyone seems to at least have a greater enthusiasm for participating in civic engagement. And that gives me a lot of hope.
Each year since the program's start in 2011, 90% of incoming students have been registered to vote. The past 2 years reaching rates just over 96%. Back to you.
Police departments nationwide are implementing body-worn cameras. Now the technology will be a required accessory for the 47 Northwestern University police officers. Northwestern ran a trial with the cameras in June after receiving funds from a federal grant shared with the Evanston Police Department. The 5 officers outfitted with the technology were able to get comfortable with the cameras and compare different companies. There was no negative feedback, so university police are moving forward with department-wide use. Deputy Chief of Police and Assistant Vice President Gloria Graham has been part of the team researching the use of body-worn cameras since early 2016. She says the use of cameras will be beneficial for both students and officers.
This is officer safety because the police officer's behavior changes, but then in addition, the community member, oftentimes their behavior changes. And so whereas they may be more apt to be upset or do something different, the fact that they're told that they're being recorded, it changes behavior.
University police aim to have the cameras fully implemented by the end of the year.
And coming up, inconvenienced by construction, we'll tell you when Sheridan Road will be back to normal.
Let's take a look at your 5-day weather forecast. Tomorrow we'll have a high of 70 degrees. Any early birds will experience some morning thunderstorms, but it should clear up by mid-afternoon and temperatures will cool to 54 degrees later in the night. On Thursday, the high will be around 70, though we'll see lots of sunshine throughout the day. The low will dip down around 59. Unfortunately, Friday will see rain throughout the day and chilly temperatures for the Northwestern Homecoming Pep Rally. The high will be 67 and the low will be 60. Even more unfortunate, we're expecting some rain showers for the big homecoming football game Saturday morning. The temperatures look average with a high of 70 degrees and a low of 57. And on Sunday, we will finally have some mostly sunny skies with the 5-day high of 74 degrees. The low will be 54 into the evening. Make sure to check out the Northwestern News Network Facebook page throughout the week on updates for homecoming weather. Back to you.
Thanks, Melissa. Those mild temperatures mean it's construction season at Northwestern, and extensive road work on Sheridan Road means no homecoming parade. Bike lanes, bus stops, and other safety features are being added along Sheridan Road. The project began in June. These developments come a year after the death of a Northwestern first year who was hit by a cement truck while riding her bike across the road. The project was set to be completed by September 15th, but was delayed nearly a month due to the Illinois budget impasse. Construction should be finished by October 16th, according to the Public Works Agency. Until then, the university recommends students and faculty allow more time for travel and be extra careful when crossing Sheridan Road.
We wanted to know how you felt about construction on Sheridan.
So we asked you about it in this week's edition of Rock Talk.
Walking to class takes me like 25 minutes now because I'm all the way north and I have to use Sheridan as like my main like path for class.
The sidewalks are pretty narrow and it's hard to cross the street, and you bump into people every once in a while, so it's just a little bit inconvenient.
I think that it could have been done like over the summer or like at a different time.
It's definitely a positive change for the campus because you can have pedestrians on the sidewalk and bikers on the bike lane and cars on the road, and no one really interacts with anyone else.
If you have an idea for a future Rock Talk topic, tweet at us at @NNN_news.
As Sheridan construction is ramping up, another project is winding down. After 18 months of construction, the Sealy G. Mudd Library is open for students. NNN's Hyo-jung Kim learned more about the improved study spot.
Tucked behind the Technological Institute, the Mudd Library is home to more than just books.
We have new computers for the students to use, 25,000 books, mainly focused on science and engineering back here, but anything can be ordered and sent up here for you, and wonderful new study spaces.
And that's not all. It has undergone changes to become more user-friendly, including 24-hour accessible study spaces, study rooms, and more. The newly renovated library features state-of-the-art interior and cutting-edge technology. McCormick sophomore Juan Solera and Weinberg sophomore Claudia Guerin say they're happy to have their North Campus study spot back.
I really like the location. I think that the fact that it's North Campus makes it easier for people who live here to have like a place to study.
I really liked like the abundance and like variation of like workspaces, because like I know especially like in Maine it's all just like your own like individual cubicles, and I don't know, I really like this and it's super open.
For some, it is the small details, not big technological leaps, that makes the library feel more like home.
And also like we have like a lot of new furnishing and it's so like pretty here.
And the windows are like a great addition too, because it makes it like brighter as well.
With almost all of the seats being occupied in its opening week, the Mudd Library is settling fast as the second home for Northwestern students. Hyo-jung Kim, Northwestern News Report.
And you can expect even more changes to Mudd this year, including longer hours and new books.
Northwestern University and Evanston Public Schools are showing what it means to be good neighbors. The two schools are kicking off a new program to help local students. The partnership aims to connect Northwestern faculty with local K-12 schools for new research opportunities. Its first study will explore different indicators of college readiness among Evanston Township high school students. The program took more than 4 years to become a reality. SESP Dean David Figlio hopes the results can be used to better prepare students for college.
We're interested in thinking about curriculum development and evaluation of new curricula, things such as ETHS's freshman year overhaul. We're also very interested in looking at early childhood.
This is just the first in a series of studies to increase academic success among Evanston middle and high school students.
Up next, we'll tell you about a student group lending a hand and some funds to local businesses.
And how exactly does that lending work? I'll zoom in on microfinance. That's coming up next in Money Minute.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, spread for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
Starting a small business is hard work, but one Northwestern student group is looking to make it a little easier for members of the community. I headed to West Evanston to find out more. At Jennifer's Edibles, most things start and end in the kitchen. For owner Jennifer Eason, it's a labor of love.
To actually get to live out my dream is something that I've always wanted to do, and I've had the opportunity.
But it was a dream that almost went down the drain. When her partner walked out on the business, Eason found herself short on funds and unable to turn to a bank for help. And that's where Northwestern student group Lend stepped in with a loan. The loan came as part of the Entrepreneurship Support Program, a partnership between Lend and the city of Evanston.
The grant has existed for a while. We're basically intervening to help make it more accessible to more people.
The program aims to provide nearly $300,000 in low-interest microloans to women and minority-owned businesses in town. For businesses like Jennifer's Edibles, these loans can mean the difference between keeping the doors open and closing them for good. But it's not just the money. Lend also steps in with coaching and advice to help these small businesses get off the ground.
Getting involved in your local community, which for us is Evanston, and making a change using your skills and what you're good at is the best way to make a difference.
For Jennifer Eason, that real difference keeps her business rolling along. Lend is looking to expand the program to other businesses in Evanston. Applications are now available. And for more on microloans, here's Matt Zadun with this week's edition of Money Minute.
Well, thank you, Eric. Microfinance lenders like Northwestern's Lend aim to make it easier for people to start their own businesses. Microloans typically range from about $100 to $25,000 and are given to people who otherwise would not have access to financial services due to poor credit or other constraints. Microloan recipients then invest that money in their business or use it to deepen their bookkeeping, cash flow management, or technical skills. The ultimate goal is for the loan recipient to become self-sufficient in the future. Most microfinance activity happens in developing countries, with Bangladesh, India, and Brazil topping that list. The World Bank estimates more than 500 million people have directly or indirectly benefited from microfinance since it became popular back in the 1970s. Proponents say microfinance empowers entrepreneurs and stabilizes the community. Meanwhile, critics say small loans are not enough to help the world's poorest people and could sometimes cripple them with debt. They say government should focus on creating new jobs, building new factories, and producing new goods. Overall, global microfinance and financing to small and medium-sized enterprises are on track to grow by 10 to 15% by the end of the year. With Money Minute, I'm Matt Dunn.
And coming up, we'll see how the Cats did on the road this weekend. Stay tuned.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
And welcome back. Joining us now is our sports guy, Max.
That's me. Since 2000, Northwestern has a 6-4 record against ranked Wisconsin football teams. In other words, Coach Fitzgerald and the Wildcats always give the Badgers trouble between the lines, whether it's Evanston or Madison. So could the Cats keep up their winning ways on the road at Camp Randall on Saturday? I was there for the post-game recap. Northwestern versus Wisconsin. In recent history, this Big Ten West rivalry has made for some very closely contested ball games, including 2 years ago here at Camp Randall, some last-second heroics by Northwestern. Saturday was no exception. The Wildcats had a 10-7 lead at the half, but the number 10 ranked Badgers rattled off 24 unanswered points to pull away, holding off a late comeback push by Northwestern to hand NU their second loss of the season, 33-24.
We start the right way, we get the turnovers we need. We don't capitalize on it. To only have 3 points off of turnovers in the first half was obviously the difference in the game in the first half. And we get in the second half, we give up miscommunication and give up a couple of explosive plays. Credit Wisconsin obviously for making those. And then, we just all of a sudden decided to stop executing on offense for some reason for about 16, 18 minutes. And then when we decided to do some things again, we got ourselves right back in the game. So very disappointed in the outcome of the game. Credit Wisconsin. And obviously we've got to get our guys to be more consistent to win games like this.
It's Big Ten play. It's Wisconsin. They're really well coached. They make plays. That's what they do. And they're impressive year in, year out, and give all the credit to them. But I felt like we were ready for what they were giving us. We made some good in-game adjustments. We just got to execute a little better.
Moving forward, the road only gets tougher for Coach Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats. Next Saturday, they will have to deal with Heisman hopeful Saquon Barkley in the backfield for the top 5 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. I should also mention, guys, that the game coming up on Saturday is homecoming for Northwestern. So everyone should come out, and hopefully the result will be a little better than last Saturday.
All right, thanks so much, Max.
Thanks, man. And coming up, one Lincoln Park tradition will leave you smiling.
Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors fly, we will meet. We will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
The start of fall doesn't only mean the return of pumpkin spice. For many in Chicago, it's also the return of a favorite tradition. Our Jordan Tilley has more.
All aboard for Fall Fest, an annual favorite at the Lincoln Park Zoo.
They really enjoy it. We come every year, and he spends like most weekends here.
In addition to the Lionel train adventure, staff members manage a bouncy house.
They were carving pumpkins.
A miniature Ferris wheel. And an easy favorite.
I think I would put the corn maze.
Then I went in the corn maze.
Corn maze is always fun, yeah, because they get to run around and play and enclosed environment. That's also good with small kids.
Attendees can browse the miniature pumpkin patch or purchase tickets for some of the larger attractions, which many feel is a small price to pay since admission is always free.
For 6 adults to pay for a 2-year-old to go to the zoo is kind of, it doesn't make sense.
So if you're looking for a way to celebrate the season, be sure to carve out some time to visit Lincoln Park. Jordan Tilley, Northwestern News Report.
Fall Fest operates weekends, Friday through Sunday, until the end of the month. And for a special treat, visitors are encouraged to come in costume on Saturday, October 28th. And on a more somber note, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the tragedy in Las Vegas this weekend. All our hearts are with anyone affected by the events that unfolded, and we'd like to remind our viewers to take the time to really appreciate each other and everything we have to be grateful for. That's all we have for you tonight. I'm Maddie Coe.
I'm Max Goodman for sports.
And I'm Eric Miller. Thanks for joining us.